Nima. And the other one called Mamobi. Those twin cities, you call them twin cities, well, I'll call them cities. So today we have a very special person who's going to tell us about Nima and Mamobi. And we have it's going to be a beautiful conversation, and you wouldn't want to miss that. So don't go anywhere. Stick and stay with us as we go, take a breather, and come back to tell you about Nima Mamobi. Welcome back to our Folkloric Symbol Show. And as I told you earlier, we are going to be talking about Nima and the other twin, Mamobi. And I told you that we have this very special person who is going to talk to us about Nima and Mamobi. His name is Dr. Charles Prempeh. He doesn't even want me to call him a doctor. But I always say that, look, you earned it, so you have to be called that. His name is Dr. Charles Prempeh. He is the author of this book, Nima Mamobi. Nima Mamobi in Ghana's post-colonial development. And as you can see, his name is here, Charles Prempeh. He's wearing our most revered fugu. And he's also a lecturer at the Culture and Political, what's it?
Center for Culture and African Studies.
Okay. At the Center of Culture and
Center for Culture and African Studies.
Please pardon me. Some of our names are really.
Yeah, you need to.
You really need. They are a mouthful. So Center for Cultural
and African
Studies at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Yeah. The reason I'm not saying KNUST is because I want you to know it's Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Yeah. So he deserves to be named, of course. Yeah. So Nima Mamobi. Why Nima Mamobi? First of all, why would you sit down and not write about Achimota?
Yeah.
Or Tessano?
Yes.
Or even Legon, the famous Legon that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And you go and talk about Nima.
Yeah.
And then add Mamobi to it. Yes. Why Nima Mamobi?
Well, first, I mean, I've lived in Mamobi, and obviously the sister community, or what called Twin City, Nima, all my life. I mean, for almost 41 years.
Wow.
I've spent years.
That's like
actively,
your whole
the whole
life.
of my life, exactly. And over the years, I've seen several works on these two communities. But then there's always something new to write about, right? Something novel, or an area that one needs to fill in terms of research. And the thing about scholarship or academia is also that you always have to leave a space. You know, there's always a space for someone to contribute to scholarship or knowledge production. It's like food. You see, if you want to be a good father, you don't consume all the food, you leave some for others to feed on. And I identify that there's a gap in the literature in terms of these two communities. And that gap had to do with, I mean, it's about social history, it's about persons who played instrumental role in shaping these two communities and yet have not been chronicled or properly written about. And so I look at one woman called Agnes Amoah, I mean, who has lived in the communities since the 1960s and has been very phenomenal in contributing to the development and the general social welfare of the people. She was the first woman to contest and win the assembly election when the concept started in the 1980s. In fact, she was among the first two women to have contested and then won. And she led Nima until somewhat, the beginning of the millennium. Yes, that she herself voluntarily resigned from politics. So
you got inspiration from her to write about
Yeah, because
Nima?
I felt no one had written about her, and yet I think, and my verdict based on the book is that you can't talk about Nima in the Fourth Republic or in the late 1980s without her. It's impossible, and yet nobody writes about her.
Okay,
and yet nobody.
She had a lot of impact on the community.
Of course, you can't talk about the Kanda Highway. She had to stand in for the community.
Okay.
The library that we have. She was a mobilizer of the women at the market.
And she's not even as like one you would describe as a Zongo woman.
Well, she's lived her life in Zango, like I said, assembly woman, right?
Yeah,
she's
like I'm saying
auntie.
that. You wouldn't, like, if, for instance, you're tracing her history, you wouldn't say she's...
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So that's the politics of identity,
yes,
right? Because this is someone who has lived in this community all her life, very instrumental in shaping lives positively, transforming life for the best or for the better, and taking care of a lot of children, You know, those days in the 80s, babies were dumped. You know, somebody gives birth, and this woman would pick all such children and take care of them. Wow. And she was a baker, right? Known in the whole of Accra, feeding families, you know, baking for mothers to sell, to raise men, take care of their families. And no one writes about her, as I'm saying. And so I decided to look at the contemporary histories of these two communities from the perspective of this woman. So I centered her as a basis of my analysis of these two communities. So, of course, there's a historical background. Yeah, of course. But I'm saying that, look, you just can't talk about these communities without
talking about it. So she basically gave you that inspiration to write about Nima and Mamobi.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into what Nima really is.
Yes.
So you have some people, I mean, the community dwell, most of the people that, you know, belong there will tell you that Nima is an Arabic name. We say Nima.
Some say Nimatullah.
So, yes.
And Nima.
And then some people are also saying, or the guys are also saying it's Nima.
Niman, like Nice Town.
Nice Town. So what really is Nima?
To be honest with you, this is also part of the politics, right? At the end of the day, you know, it's about identity. It's about what a space means to a people, right? It is not just a name. It's also about its entanglement, you see, with issues of identity, ownership, custodianship, and legitimacy, so to speak. And just because of that, it becomes highly politicized. I mean, remember Romeo and Juliet? Romeo was trying to woo Juliet and trying to erase his own identity, right? Try to neutralize it. And Juliet, I know you can't do that. What is in a name? Which means that there's something in a name that we can't escape from. But because of the partisanship that has characterized the naming, either way, we should accept it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about conviviality. It's about the people's social capacity and skills to cohere and to live together. For me, that's the most important thing. It is not just Nima. It is also about Mamobi. It used to be Alhamdu.
Mamobi,
yes.
It used to be named
Alhamdu, which is a contraction of Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Right? And then eventually became Mamobi. So again, Mamobi too has Mamomomlibi, you know, that sort of thing. So either way, yes, it's the politics around it.
But what really is, so you are not settling on one name as the name?
I just don't want to, because I'm telling you, it's not healthy, you know, because either way, someone has a claim, right?
Yeah.
Whether legitimate or not, as I told you, it's not neutral, right?
Yeah, the thing is that the people who are even settlers, they know the land never belonged to us from the beginning. We had to buy it from the landowners and all. And it brings me to the question how they settled there.
Yeah, but that's even more complex than that. It's just a matter of buying or giving, right? Okay. But remember, these two communities emerged after the Second World War. All right? Yeah. Remember, after the Second World War, Tudu had grown more or less. The population had grown. There was a need there was a need for expansionist movement. But that wasn't just that. You know, it was also about the colonial strategies of governance and how people wanted to respond to it. But they were paying all sort of ridiculous taxes. And they didn't want to be part of that kind of regime. So they had to spread out. So you could see that they moved to the French. Okay, from the Gamashi, from Tudu to that side of... So that is why until the 1950s, you wouldn't have Mamobi as part of the direct governance of the colonial governor. Yes. So it was strategic. All right? So if you look at Accra Girls area, you know, it used to be a cemetery. There was a cemetery there.
Oh, there was a cemetery?
Yeah, military cemetery, yes. Okay. For the colonial, yes.
Okay.
So my point is to say that it was not just a matter of we know the owners of the land, we bought or we didn't buy it. No. It was more complicated than that.
Than that.
Yes, because
But what was the place like? Was Nima a land that had so many people in there? Or let's just say Nima was like, for instance, today's Atria Forest, where there is nobody in there, basically.
Yes.
And then people moved in there and decided to settle there.
Yeah,
Was that how Nima
yes,
was?
so you see, you and I are speaking with the view of today's, spatial landscape of the area, right?
Yeah.
When I was at my secondary school, Pantine was so bushy.
Yeah.
Right? Today, if I look at Pantine, and I don't have a background knowledge, I may think of Pantine as though it has always been as it looks today. Do you get it? So perhaps when I was in secondary school, if a parcel of land was given to me at Pantine, I may have turned it down.
Yeah.
So look at the evolution or the growth of Accra urban development in that light, right? That there was a need for these spaces to be protected. So this idea of Ablekuma, right? The invitation of strangers. Yes, almost every culture needs strangers to occupy the fringes for the sake of security, so sort of security buffer zones. So it is not, that's why I said that there's a politics around it. It's not just a matter of come and take the land, come and buy the land. No, it was also secure the frontiers.
Like, for instance, Professor Telsu will say that one of the reasons why the Zongos or the Nima houses are so clustered is because of security.
Yes.
And also the reason they were out or they are currently out of the typical Ga areas is because the Gans wanted them to be like the buffer.
Security buffer.
Security buffer
to protect the frontiers against invasion.
Against invasion.
Beyond that, you see, you notice that Gamashis have had to be decongested. Right?
Yes.
And then after Second World War, things were changing radically.
Yeah, but
and there was a need for people to spread out.
Yes.
Okay.
Gamashi was decongested
from the 1908.
From 1908.
That's right.
Thereabouts.
Bubonic plague and all that. But I'm saying
plague,
that there was further need for decongestion.
For decongestion.
Because remember, the city had to grow over time.
Yes, the city had to
grow. So you have Tudu, which has started around 1908 to 1979.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after Second World War, because remember it became a recruitment center for enlisting people into the British West Africa Frontier Force.
Exactly.
Okay.
With the Glover's boys.
Exactly, Captain Glover. So soon after the Second World War, more people were moving into the city of Accra. Already, that movement has started way back, but then, of course, started crystallizing in 1877 when Accra became the capital of the Gold Coast colony.
Yeah.
Right. So after Second World War, there was a need for people to move out further from the Tudu area in particular, right? And it was not also just, you see, it was politically driven because they wanted to move away from some of these ridiculous tasks by the colonial governor, hard tasks, whatever tasks. So moving to the fringes was a way of keeping themselves from that kind of regime.
So these people you are talking about, are they Fulanis?
Yeah, they were the Frafra.
Are they Yorubas?
They were the Frafra, most of them were Frafra, so from the northern part of the country.
The Grushis.
The Grushi, the Frafra, yes, exactly. The Busanga.
The Busanga.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now you have brought in an aspect that I never thought was part of.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the Zongos, for instance, most of the people that, let's say, even the name should tell you that most of them are Hausa people.
Yes.
Either they are Hausa people or Hausa-speaking people.
Yes.
So they were mostly seen as settlers from the other West African countries like Niger and Nigeria, northern Nigeria, even southern Nigeria. So even at that time, we still had Sierra Leoneans and the Liberians, the Kru people and all of that. So these were people that were rather known to be from these areas. So the question is, how did the Grushis, the Buzanga, and all those people, how did they get into it? Because these were like indigenous western part of, northern part of the Gold Coast, like the protectorates, those people. So how did those people get into the ecosystem of these Zongo?
Yeah, so look at it this way. So David Klingray will call it Hausanization, sort of Hausanization of the Zango community. Now remember that Hausa was not as prominent as it became at the beginning of the 19th century, after Osman Danfodio's religious reform. Until then, Hausa was not that prominent to that extent. I'm not saying it wasn't prominent, but not to that extent, right?
Yeah.
So it was obviously a language of commerce because the houses and the others were, itinerant traders. They were all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, because they were already established with their language, it was very easy for it to become the language of proselytization. As Ali Mazrui rightly said, Islam is a religion of a chosen language compared to, let's say, Judaism, which he says is a religion of a chosen people.
Yeah.
So if you take it from that perspective, any language that enabled the spread of Islam was adopted as well as Islamic. You know, this is Arabic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at other faith traditions like Christianity, you see that it is not aligned to one particular language.
Yeah.
Okay. In the case of Islam, that was a different story.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go to Kiswahili, the East Africa is Kiswahili, for us it's Hausa. Now here's what happened, responding to your question directly. You notice that it was the policy of the British to foster unity at the lower rank level of the constabulary or the police. Okay, so they imposed Hausa as the language for all those at the lower rank level to speak. Yes. So whether one was Grushi, Frafra, or whatever, one had to speak Hausa. And the logic, obviously, because language unites. And bear in mind that because, one, the language is identifiable with Islam, and then two, it was spoken among a certain group of people, by foisting it on the people, what it meant was that they would not directly relate with those they were to superintend or offer security against. Remember, they were on the side of the colonialists, as opposed to the so-called indigenes. And remember, again, whether brought from the northern part of the country or northern Nigeria, and they were stationed at the colony, southern part of the colony or the colony proper before the northern territories. Okay, so with Hausa as one language, it allowed the colonial governor to unite their front because you see, the esprit de corps in the security, you want to make sure that they have a sense of oneness. Because once there's division or polarization, it will not work. And remember also that the security agency has what we call regimentalism, right? Regimentalism as its strategy or structure. And one way of doing that is language. So they had to use the Hausa language.
The Hausa language.
You see, that also further popularized the language. In addition to, as I've said, the Osman Danfodio, reform, which was much earlier, of course, before the 1874 when we had the Captain Glover, Hausa Gold Coast Constabulary. So the issue then is that it was a linguistic identity more than ethnic identity, right? And then also remember that stretch of land was also for resettling ex-servicemen who had fought exactly, and Mamobi in particular. Now remember that the whole, you see, it was from Ruga, Mamobi before Nima. Okay. Of course, people think Nima is older than Mamobi, but that's at a different level. In terms of historicity of origin, Mamobi is older. In terms of progressive growth, Nima.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
That's why I told you, say, Mamomo Mlibi. You speak Ga.
Mamomo Mlibi.
That's it. Do you get it? That's what they say.
So they were already there before the Nima people.
Moved, yes. So Mamobi had the chief imam.
Okay.
For both communities. He died only, I think, 2 years ago, yes.
Interesting.
But like I said, in terms of growth and prominence, Nima took a lead because of the cemetery, which was around Mamobi area, Accra Girls area. You get it? So we shouldn't look at it in terms of how come the Frafra. So if how come, then it's a matter of, like I told you, a matter of ex-servicemen being resettled in that area. Then the identification with Hausa, as I said, is also because of the colonial policy of ensuring that those at the lower rank level spoke the Hausa language. Yes.
So I was going to say that then the guards were not wrong by saying that, due to basing it on your earlier submission, that they were not wrong by classifying Muslims as Hausa Cheme.
That's right.
Yes, because if you shouldn't feel offended if maybe you are a Yoruba and then a guy calls you Hausa just because you are a Muslim, because the language itself was used as an identification and also to propel Islam or something that needed.
There was homogenization, right? There was an attempt to foster homogenization on the people. That's what happened.
So we will, viewers, I actually want Doc to actually go into how these, we know that it's actually from them being the Frafra people and the other Buzangas, the indigenes in this current Ghana, how they got into the Zongos, the today's Zongos. I wanted him to touch on how they came in, not only through, let's say, the military or anything, but other things. So I want us to go on a break, and then when we come back, we are going to touch on the other ways that these other indigenes got into the current ecosystem of the Zongos. Let's take a breather, and then when we come back, you hear more. If you're just coming in, we are talking about Nima Mamobi. I mean, it's not my fault that you were not here anyway, but welcome back to our Folkloric Symbol Show. And we are doing this in collaboration with the National Folklore Board. And we are talking about Nima Mamobi, the history of Nima Mamobi. And it's been a wonderful discussion so far. So as you've joined in now, okay, so Doc, yeah. You've told us that the Frafras, the Buzangas, I mean the indigenous northern people or indigenous Zongo people, I mean, some of these people are, you know, Frafras and Buzangas and all of that. And one way of them getting into these particular settlements is actually through the military. Which other ways, how did they also come in? Because predominantly, these are Hausa, Yoruba, Zabarma, and they are the ones you call Zongo people. Yeah. So how did Frafra enter, apart from he being a military person?
Yeah, I think we need to differentiate Zongos, right?
Okay.
The very historic Zongo, let's say in Kumasi. Right, let's say 1895. You know, if you look at Ernest Redral's work. Okay. See, that Zango will be pretty much different from, let's say, the Zango we find in Accra.
In Accra,
so
yeah.
we should not conflate the two, right? Okay. So you notice that, like I said, in Accra, you see that people were moving out of Accra Central, of which Sudu was included.
Okay.
To the fringes. And it was strategic. It was also a coping strategy, like I mentioned earlier. So you would expect that migrants who had moved into the city to work, laborers, because most of the people were laborers or ex-servicemen as well, right, who moved into Mamobi and Nima. You get it? So in that sense, it will not be that you know, the historic Zango, because remember this is almost in the middle of the 20th century. Not in the late 19th century. So obviously things will be a bit different.
Okay.
Right. So it will be more of cosmopolitan. And of course the Zongos have always been cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
But more so in the Nima Mamobi's case. So that's why you have the Akan, you have the Ewe, you have all these people there.
Yeah.
Right?
In every Zongo, actually.
That's the point. So it will not be, that's why I said, it will not be your typical, say, Hausa, because the Hausas are just in a minority.
Hausa Fulani.
If the Hausa people are there in Mamobi and Nima, for example, of course they will be there, but it's more of the language, the linguistic identity, like I said, more than the ethnic identity. That's the point.
Okay.
So and like I said, the reason or what gave impetus to the Hausa language, which I mentioned, is the fact that it became the channel for the spread of Islam.
Yes.
Okay, and I recall very well in the late 80s with the rise of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and of course turning into the 1990s, you have many of these sheikhs who go to Northern Nigeria to perfect or to enhance, you know, the quote-unquote the quality of the Hausa they speak for the purposes of evangelism or dawah, right?
Dawah,
because then they are able to say between Hausa and soldier. and then the Hausa Yankan, you know, sort of, because...
What is Hausa soldier?
Yeah, so the Hausa soldier will be the kind of Hausa, because remember that, as I told you, this is a soldier that was imposed on the lower rank officers, right? And when multiple languages interact, there's borrowing and loaning. So that language will have, it will be a potpourri of languages, okay, overlaid by the broader Hausa language. So if you look at the Hausa that is spoken in Nima, Mamu, you see that you have more of the local languages intermeshed or interlaced with it. And that is expected. Because once language interact or cultures interact, like I said, there's borrowing, there's loaning, right? Now, this would be very different from, let's say, Hausa in Nigeria, because then the level of language contact will be limited. Well, here it's linguistically plural compared to, let's say, northern Nigeria. In the same way, if you go to Kumasi, you see that Hausa is slightly different from what we speak here. Why? Because there's a predominant language, the Asante Tree. Okay, unlike, let's say, here in Accra, where you have other languages interacting with, you know, so that's so you say Hausa soldier. And the Hausa camp. So those, they'll go there and perfect their Hausa for the sake of dawa, because it had a degree of prestige, just as Arabic will have prestige.
Hausa is a very beautiful language.
That's the point. So it's not even just the beauty of it. It is the fact that it has attained that sacralized status, quote unquote, because it became, as I said, the conduit through which Islam spread. And that also, as I said, was in the beginning of the 19th century.
But the question is, why would they impose Hausa?
The colonial government? Yeah. I've told you that it is regimentalism, one, right? And then two, remember also that some of these people who were enlisted into the Goku Constabulary were erstwhile slaves. Okay? So language, remember, it was Mandela who said, if you speak to people in the language they speak, it goes into their head. Oh no, if you speak to people in the language they understand, it goes into their head. If they speak it, it goes into their heart. So language is a way of uniting people. And that is why in every civilization, imposition of language or linguistic imperialism is at the base of it. Right? Because when they speak the same language, there's sort of, you see, groupthink. Because language is a carrier of culture. And so when they speak a common language, invariably they identify with a common culture. Now, in a security system, you wouldn't want to polarize their linguistic front. That will affect their esprit de corps, which I mentioned. You wouldn't want to do that.
You wouldn't want to do that.
And then two, they were used, or the colonial governor leveraged the security system in a way to also suppress and repress anti-colonial sentiment or nationalistic drive. Okay, so if they were to speak the language of those they were hoping to suppress, then it will not work. So it's better they kept away from the people using that linguistic barrier in that sense. So you hear Abongo, right? Abongo. So it's like Abuago. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. See, so that's what I'm saying, that at the end of the day, in fact, the Asante for many years would never join the security forces for any reason. So if you were, because people were forced into it, all right? And it's also a way of sort of deculturalizing, quote unquote, an attempt to sever you from a certain community you belong to, right? So the language becomes your identity, and as I said, it's not just language. But language is a vehicle through which culture travels and is retained. So once you spoke a certain language, that is not even yours. So invariably, you identify with the cultural composition of that language.
You end up becoming like
the language, the food. That's why if you go to the Zango, see the common food, almost common dress code.
Yes. From outside, they look like they are one.
Yes, but within you see the differences. In fact, if you go to Mamobi East. Mamobi East, for example, you see more of Hausa towards Kakudi, right? See, love Hausa-speaking community. Not necessarily that they are Hausa, but they are Chamba, Kotokoli, and of course you have the Fafra House. But then across the street, the Nima Highway to Mamobi West, you find more of the Akan. All right? So you have more of the street-speaking people over there compared to Mamobi East. You get it? Now, in the same way, if you look at even Nima, Nima West, towards Pehe, Newtown, you see that they also have a blend of languages. You see the Ga creeping in. Compared to Nima East, towards Kanda, towards Ruga, you see that more of the Hausa. You see. So the problem I'm then saying is that if you allow multiplicity of language in the security system, it becomes problematic. Especially, remember that this is a colonialist or quote-unquote foreigner. How do you compel uniformity in obedience to a certain structure or hierarchy of authority?
We had too many languages.
Yes.
They needed to.
So you need to do that, right? You need to, because without which it is impossible. And then when they speak the same language, like I said, see that it propels them towards seeing things from a certain uniformed perspective.
Okay. So, are there descendants of slaves within the...
Well, that'd be difficult to tell.
Okay.
Yes, because remember that this idea of even Abawa and all that emerged after the end of, quote unquote, the end of so-called slave trade, right? Because when Salaga Market collapsed, yes, it didn't die off. In fact, there's a work that by Professor Kwabena Krampari. He's done a lot of interesting work. You may want to consult his work on that. There was you see, listen, the whole thing is this. Who performs what in society is also a matter of, it's not a matter of even dehumanization. It's a fact of civilization. Guess what? No matter what, somebody has to do something. Okay? So the issue then is not so much about what one is doing, as it is about whether, irrespective of what one is doing, one's dignity as a human being will still be respected. So in other words, it's not so much about function as it is about ontological dignity or inherent worth. So if I sweep the road, will I still be respected as a human being similar to someone who works as a bank manager? Because we all can do the same thing.
Yes.
And so throughout civilization, the question has been a matter of how do you justify the one who sweeps and the one who sits in an office?
Okay.
Because come what may, we all won't do the same thing. Is that not it?
Yes.
That's
and we all can be at the same level.
But at least we are all humans.
Yes.
So that's why I said the issue is not so much about functionality as it's about ontology. I mean, you're a philosopher, so that's why I'm heading towards that direction.
I'm a student of philosophy.
Yeah. So in terms of function, we are different. Ontologically, we are the same. Now, the problem with slavery is not the question of so much. It's not so much about function, as it is about whether your humanity will be respected, whether your you see, if your humanity is not questioned, if your dignity is not tampered with, right?
You don't mind.
That's the point.
Yeah, you are there.
Exactly.
I mean, until somebody tells you
you should
that,
be respected.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, whatever we do in society, all right, it also makes it difficult to define who a slave is.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and I'm not also very much interested in pre-modern and pre-modern.
It brings me to something Professor Pebi.
Yeah, Nigerian slavery.
Yeah,
yes,
said about when slavery, the British abolished slavery.
Yeah.
Now she said that when at a point when the Ashantis were like going for wars just so that they could get prisoners of wars and sell them into, though they also had their own form of slavery, which brings me to the motive as to why slavery was even going on.
Yeah.
We've all societies have had some form of slavery at a point. And so when they were selling them to the British for, slavery and all of that, in their own, wherever they were taking them to, they thought that, the way they were treating the slaves here were, the same.
But that's oversimplification.
Yeah, okay, so that's what, for what Prof was saying, that was what she was trying to say, that, so when the British governors came and said, so Osaibo to say, we have slaves, you have people for you to take. And then he said, no, we have stopped. He said, so they said, the king asked him, why do you stop? He said, oh, it's evil, it's bad. He said, when did you realize it is bad?
That's oversimplification. There's a bit of...
When did you realize it's bad?
No, I don't want us... I think, look, to be honest, it is oversimplification,
okay.
Right? So remember, look at it this way. See, that's what I told you. It's not so much about what we do.
What we do, yeah.
As it is about whether, regardless of our functionality in society, our inherent value as human beings will be
will not be
respected.
diminished.
So you see, the question about whether they knew or not, for me, is neither here nor there. To be honest with you, you know why?
Yeah.
Because even here, right, even here, in so-called indigenous slavery, there were some of them were being used for sacrifices.
Yeah.
So what about that? So they knew that the slave did not, have absolute legitimacy like the so-called freeborn child or person.
Exactly.
So that argument, let's dump it.
Yeah.
So no. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we should say it as it is,
True.
right?
Yeah, we should.
Because you see, I worry about how we try to interpret history, because if our historiography is poor, we miss the mark.
Yeah.
And we never learn.
Yeah.
You see, because when you do that, it's a way of sometimes either justifying or saying that, oh, they were more humane. No, but that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Look at it this way.
Yeah.
As we said, in every society, someone has to do something.
Yeah.
So actually the word is not even slavery, okay, or it's not even slave. Let's say a servant.
A servant.
Basically a servant, right?
Yes, because you need help.
Yes, because
you go to the market to get
someone. When we use the word slave, it conjures an understanding of a human being who has been dehumanized.
Of course.
Okay? So because that's what the word conjures.
Yeah.
But then, if you look at it in the ancient, you see, let's transpose the same word to, let's say, the ancient world. It will not mean the same thing in terms of the quality of the human being in question. Now, look at it this way. You see, today, if you are to subject someone to slavery, it will be more pernicious than it was in the pre-modern world. You know why? Because today you can discard human being, quote and unquote. you can discard human beings because in the banking sector, when I was at the University of Cape Coast, you need to queue for hours to get your no fuel from the government.
Yes.
Someone had to be employed to do that. Is that not
yes.
it? Today, machines are used to do something. I can stay in my room. So what it means is that you can easily overrule the humanity of a human being. Because you don't need that person for any reason.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So what it then means is that if you want to project contemporary understanding of servitude to a world that was technologically, quote unquote, backward, that would be a conflation. That would be purely disordered historiography.
Yeah. In other words, you can't use the context of the time.
It becomes presentism, a fallacy of presentism.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, that when people try to say they were better treated than it is, it's not true. I said at any rate, right? You think the white person or the slave master was idiot to invest in the slavery and then kill the person? That wouldn't make sense. Because it was expensive to acquire slave.
Yes.
To be honest with you, maintaining slavery was more expensive than not getting slavery.
Yes.
And that is why, in a way, I tend to think that it was not so much about the advocacy. Neither was it so much about the religious, convictions. No. Of course, they may have offered some, justification to get. It's more economic.
So from what you're saying, you are of the school of thought that we should be complicit as Africans.
We were part of the narrative.
We are part.
You see,
and so shouldn't there be any
compensation,
reparations?
Who should pay who? That's the question. Yeah,
because it was a business transaction anyway.
We are not trying to, recuse any group of people from whatever happened, right? But my point is this.
But with the history of the transatlantic slave trade
Yes.
and the Indian Ocean slave, that one was transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah, we are into. Why don't you want to talk about that one? Because that one was even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Of all forms of slave. The men were castrated.
Yes.
So
in Oman and
right,
they were,
because they needed them to keep the harem
Yeah.
of their wives and to use them in the military.
Yes.
And see again, it comes back to what I said about regimentalism, the security system. If you allow them to have children and wives and family, they will have divided loyalty, right? But if you deny them the natural right of having children, then their loyalty is singular.
Yes, to you.
Because at the end of the day, they had been desocialized, what Orlando Patterson would call social death, right? So either way, right? Let's admit that whatever happens in society, right, is part of the flow of life, good or bad. Now, responding to it should not be reactionary. It should be how we interpret it and how we redeem our past. Because if you try to now romanticize or erase history, then you see, you don't get anything right. You remember, do you know when slavery, there was an attempt to start ending it? You know when? From the beginning of the mid-18th century.
Yeah.
You know what happened? Industrial Revolution. So once there's technological explosion, obviously,
they have built machines that were taking over the jobs.
yeah, that's why now they say, okay, legitimate trade.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
and if you look at our part of the world, we had asylum systems. I discussed in this book.
Okay.
You have all scholars beginning with a Dubois-Hen, in fact, J.B. Dankwa, Dubois-Hen, and the others saying that the asylum system was creating a state within a state. But nobody asked the question, why the asylums in the first place? Because remember, if these missionaries wanted, like the Basel missionaries, right? Even more than the Wesleyans. Remember, the Basel were the Coupon range, and then the Wesleyans were the Costa and then a bit of Ashanti, right?
But how did they get to Osu?
The Wesleyans.
No,
the Basel came through here Osu before they moved to the climatic conditions.
Okay.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If indeed they wanted to separate themselves, in fact, remember, they were more interested in promoting the language and culture than even the Wesleyans. So why would they separate the people? Because they were involved in translation work. Do you think they will succeed if they were not part of the community? It means something was going on more than. And that's why we need to now interrogate the archives and the history. What necessitated the asylum system? Because the chiefs and the kings would not want their servants, they didn't want to lose their servants.
For the benefit of viewers, what's the asylum system?
Well, enclaves. You see,
okay.
for those who had converted to Christianity.
Cuckoo Hill was one.
That's right.
Yeah.
You see, and the reason was they were not allowed the freedom of worship or freedom of religion. And remember, that freedom of religion...
But you see, that is something I would disagree with you.
No, that's fine. I'm happy
you know why?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the time there was a discussion on this at Peja, a literary art festival in Accra at the Goethe Institute, where they were glorifying the missionary, the missionary for translating the Bible into Ga, and for that matter, helping Ga language to be documented, right? And then I said, oh, well, fine. But at the end of the day, they were not doing it for your benefit. They were doing it because they were selling a religion. And how were they going to sell the religion if they were not putting the religion in? So it was a way of advertising the religion to you.
But it's also more complicated than that. In fact, J.B. Dankwa did a very good work in this area. If you look at his book on Account Doctrine of God, and he admitted, I don't think anyone will be more Catholic atavistic more than J.B. Dankwa. And yet, he acknowledged the role of the missionaries in terms of the language. You remember I earlier said...
He gives too much credit to them.
No, but I'm going to build a point. Now, remember, Protestantism had a different philosophical or theological perspective about mission altogether. See, so if you take... that's why, for me, historiography matters. If you take missionary history... before the Reformation, right? You wouldn't even want to call it mission history because they were not even doing mission, right? If for any reason they stepped out of their castles and the fort, it was because of the mulattoes, not because they were going to evangelize. That wasn't part of their understanding. And for the Protestants, right, even after Reformation, they had a certain understanding that instead of going to just anybody to send the gospel, they should go to the Lordship of Israel. And who were the Lordship of Israel? They taught their fellows who were in settler colonies like South Africa. And that is why most of them went to Southern Africa before they moved to non-settler colonies like West Africa. So you see, it would be very simplistic, as I said earlier, to just say that the language was to sell religion. No, they were not interested. And so the idea of even moving to non-settler colony...
No, I think...
No, I made that point.
Yeah,
see, remember, it was here in the Gold Coast. Here in the Gold Coast. Where the Wesleyan Church suffered its first secession, internal disruption.
I would like you to hold on that because even the whole transatlantic slave trade, the Portuguese, the British, and were the French involved in slavery? They were not so much.
Almost all Europeans.
Yeah, but
the French,
Portuguese,
the British,
and it was actually the Asiento.
Yes.
That actually propelled them.
Bartholomew Las Casas.
To come into. So for me, and one of the reasons that Asiento came about there was that. They thought Africans were savages. They were barbarians who needed to be Christianized Yes, so that was how come
Okay.
they came in. So it won't be simplistic as you're putting it
Yeah.
to say that they were not interested and whatever they were doing was to our benefit. No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It was for them to sell their religion to you.
Okay, so look at it this way. See, when you look at European identity, again, before the birth of the modern stage, it was inseparable from religion. So religion and politics were fused as one and the same. We should always bear that in mind, right? That before the birth of the modern state in Europe, beginning from the 18th century, right, European identity wasn't separated between religion and politics.
Yeah, wasn't really by words at a point.
No, that's what I'm saying. That was in the later development.
So
remember,
when was
the French Revolution?
No, in which year was
the Treaty of Westphalia?
When the English church started. When did that start?
The Church of England.
Yeah, the Church of England.
Yes,
yeah,
in the 19th century, Anglicanism.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was because of
Henry
the Eighth, who wanted. Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to say is that.
Yeah.
You see, when you talk about religion, even Christianity, right? Religion. First, let me begin with religion. First of all, religion, right? Religion, the term religion as we use it, never existed as an analytical category until the 19th century, right? Okay, what it means is that you would hardly find any indigenous community that has a word for religion. At least I don't know any. In the case of Ghana, I don't know any, right? That's point number one. Now, point number two, as I said, philosophy or the human inherent intellectual capacity to rationalize a phenomenon could be anything. You could call religion. At best, you can call it the why. So I'll call it the why of the how. So the why for me will be religion. Okay. And that the why could mean anything. Again, it could mean once you're able to rationalize it, that's what matters. Okay. And that is why the Bible itself was used and interpreted in a manner and ways that reinforced and justified slave trade.
Yes.
It is not to say that the Bible justifies and supports slavery. So we had a slave Bible. I hope you are aware of that. Oh, yes.
I thought it was a same Bible.
No, we had a slave Bible.
Okay.
Yes. So they denied the slaves the benefit of reading aspect of the Bible that talked about the equality of the human race. And that's why I told you, the problem is not about function per se. It is about whether, regardless of what I do, my humanity, my inherent dignity as a person will be respected. That's how we should look at the conversation. You see, and that is why, if you look at the slaves, so-called, the enslaved Africans and the descendants, see, what inspired them, whether the maroonage and what happened afterwards, was more of the Bible. And in the Bible, which figure represented? Well, Moses. Because then Moses became a liberator or liberatory figure. Yeah. And it's not just limited to the era of the slave trade or the struggle against it. If you look at it, it's known as liberation theology in Latin America, South Africa, right? It is inspired by the Moses figure. And of course, in the case of liberation theology, more of the Christ factor, Christ as a liberator. So my point is to say is that we should not overly conflate such conversations, because that's what we need: robust, rigorous, intellectually sound and informed historiography. But it's because you can't do history without timing. Then that's not history.
No, yeah.
Again, it's not just the timing. It's also about the interpretation you assign to it. Because when you mention that, and so somebody, if you go to the castle, you see a church on top. But that's very simplistic, as I said, because remember that if you read the archival materials, many of the missionaries, in fact, later some of the Europeans were even complaining against the last attitude and lifestyle among their fellow Europeans as all representative of Christ or the Christian faith. So you take it, you see, remember that until the French Revolution, right? The modern state had not emerged the way it is today.
Okay.
And what it then means is that this idea of freedom of religion was not there in the manner we see it today.
Yeah.
In fact, even that's why I disagree with Ali Mazuri. And then those who make those simplistic and not that in Africa there was freedom of religion before, it's not true. You know why it is not true? It is not true because if you take Christianity, if you take Islam, if you take Judaism, these are transcendental religions.
Yeah.
Now, if you take every other, especially so-called primary religions, they are not transcendental.
Yeah.
They are more transactional.
Yeah.
Because God Almighty is not worshipped directly, right? Instead, you interface with God through the so-called intermediaries, say the children of God. Even in Arabia, they had it. Al-Alat, Al-Manat, Al-Uzat, before Allah.
Yeah.
They didn't care about Allah. They knew Allah. Because Allah will impose His laws on you. You can't negotiate. But as for the daughters of Allah, you can negotiate. Because they are not Allah. They are not the Almighty. If you come to our part of the world too, the same thing, right? So the deities are not your creator. Your creator, you said, is a deistic being. He is deistic. He's far removed.
Yeah.
But as for the other creatures, they are like you.
They are the ones that...
They are like you. They are those who interact with. And that's why Kwesi Redu will say, and I agree with Kwesi Redu, that when you pour libation, it's not worship. It's a communicative device. And I agree again, because remember, Redu is building upon Okopevitek.
Yeah.
Okay? So in that sense, it will be different. So it will have a superficial image of freedom of religion. Because then you are not coerced to work. But remember that when there's a tutelary deity, and that deity becomes a source of power for the chief, you can't do otherwise. So take the case of Nyame among the Asante. When that Nyame became such a powerful name that was leveraged to consolidate the political authority and sovereignty of the Asante, you can't just say Menyame. You have to say Nyame. Okay. You get it? Okay. So if you look at it from that angle, that's what I'm saying. We should not. It's something when I struggle when we try to do simplicity analysis by conflation, and no, I don't think that's right way of doing scholarship.
Yeah, that scholarship, like you said.
Yeah.
But if I am looking at it as a layman,
yes,
of course I wonder, but how did they have a church here? And there's a
dungeon.
A dungeon there.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, because of that, yeah.
Because they will only interpret what they see and their level of, thinking.
Look,
but
the same applies to Islam, right?
Yeah.
When the Muslim traders were moving, see, there were Muallims who followed them. There were spiritual people who were providing them with religious services.
Yeah.
So you see, it is like that because those days, as I said, European identity was not different from religious identity. So both politics and religion were merged together.
Yes.
And bear in mind that throughout history, human beings have hardly separated pure religion from pure politics. Because it doesn't exist as a reality. And that is why in the 1960s, when secularization thesis, because the inspiration was coming from Max Weber, right? Disenchantment, this idea of we are disenchanting the public, this idea of we are institutionalization, the charisma has been institutionalized. Because the charisma is mystified, right? And it has mystical causality. So when you institutionalize it, then you demystify it. When you demystify it, then religion goes away. That has never happened because the modern state thrives on religion.
Yes.
Take the flag of Ghana. So you say, Ghana is secular, and I laugh. What makes it secular? Because even the flag tells you it's religion. Said the red means those who died. What does that got to do with us?
Ancestors.
We know that when we say those who died, the impression and the implication is that somebody sacrificed. So you must also sacrifice.
Yes.
Otherwise, why should I sacrifice for Ghana?
And then sacrifice is embedded in religion.
That's the point.
Again. The Egyptians you see today, you know.
Yes, and they are building it from indigenous, because remember also that pre-modern political organization was covenantally driven because it was directly related to spirituality, the so-called ancestors, whether putative or real, right? The modern state also appeals to religion, but indirectly. The constitution, if you commit swastika, if you burn the country's flag, you've burned the soul of that country. Okay. What is that about a flag? That when you burn it, you burn the soul of that nation.
Okay.
It's a mystification, it's religion.
Okay.
Again, that is why I think Donald Gray's idea of a divided sovereignty is very simplistic as well.
Doc,
yes.
Please relax.
Yeah.
Relax on that. Relax on that. Yes. If we allow Doc to go on, we are going to have a Phil 101 right now, a whole lecture on philosophy. So, I mean, you can see how rich that conversation is. So, we want to take a break, and when we come back, the Egyptians you see today, you shall see them no more. So, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about not only Nima Mamobi, but we will just juxtapose the conversation into the history of West African secondary school, a book he also authored. And it's also, I mean, from West African Secondary School was from, it's an offshoot of these communities. And for that matter, when we are back, we are going to have that conversation.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Up Santa Claus and stand up to your honor, those who have gilded the school with their fame. Our alma mater, a blessing upon her, they that remember the strength of their name. Others have labored and we share their glory, as to do exploit and add to their gain. Those who come after will take up a story, may be worthy of singing again. Play up, more join me, play up Santa Claus. So we go play up and play the game. Give nothing but your best and never think of rest. Play up for the school's great name. Play up Santa Claus. So we go play up and play the game. Give nothing but your best and never think of rest. Play up for the school's great name. Thank you. Provide 540 cubic meters of water to over 5,000 students and non-teaching staff on campus. Because you know Cape Coast, back then, water has been a challenge in Cape Coast. So based on the advice from the Global Executive Council of Outside Boys, he decided that no, this is the project we want your year group to do. And we wanted a cheaper one, but they told us no, this is the necessity the school really has to take up. So that's the project we are doing. And so we are expected to execute it and hand it over to the school next year, March. And because 25 years after you are out of school, then you are customarily mandated to undertake a legacy project.
Because oftentimes these legacy projects are...
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
More than 80% of global trade is carried by sea. Most of the products we consume daily travel through ports, making them a key link in the global supply chain. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority is committed to ensuring the maritime trade.